Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamai Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidmai. Okay, very good. So we'll read the last two verses we covered last time. Verse 22 and 23. Okay, so I'm on page 70 in the book. All right, so we'll read it together. Everyone's there? Yeah, page 70, verse 22. Rajastamascha sattvena sattvam chopashamena cha etat sarvam gurau bhaktya purushau hyanjasajaye upadeshamimam nityam vimrishami punah punaha shamanam cha prapashyami malanam shanai shanai. All right. So, last time we saw in verse 22 that how does a person evolve in this world? What is a process of evolution? First, we move from being of a tamasic nature. Tamasic nature means inertia, people who don't move, people who are lazy, procrastinate, they just keep delaying and delaying. Basically, from a state of being completely inert, not wanting to move, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to go anywhere. This is called tamas. Then the seeker slowly moves into a state of rajas. The state of rajas is one of activity. Then we start to go out there, do everything, go here, go there, achieve this, achieve that. And in the state of rajas, although we are moving too quickly. We're moving too much. We're doing too many things. So the example I said last time was our Google Calendar, if there's a slot empty, we get scared, right? What are we going to do on this empty day? So we want to fill everything up. And then we end up rushing here and there and everywhere, and we don't do things fully. We just do many things, but then we get lost and we think, okay, why are we even doing this again? So this is a state of rajas. It's hyperactivity. Then the seeker slowly comes to a state of sattva. And sattva is a stage of presence. It's calmness. It is just happiness, actually. Because now the seeker has learned to pause. The seeker has learned to be more meaningful, to slow down, and when the mind is that calm, that poised, then we explored last time, we are our best selves. We make the best decisions, we are most creative, we are most dynamic selves actually in that stillness of the mind. And we respond to the world very well. If we notice whenever we're lazy, we're dull and inert and we try to do something, it doesn't come out right? If we're so sleepy and we try to do something, we all of a sudden mess up. And if we're in a rush and we try to do something, it's messy. It just gets messy. But when we're in the right state of mind and we do something, it comes out very beautifully. So the seeker moves from the state of tamas to rajas to sattva. And here, after sattva also, one has to go beyond these three gunas or modes of the mind, because remember, the self is beyond the mind. The self is that which is beyond the mind. So even going beyond the mind is a must for all seekers, but this only happens after we've cultivated a good amount of sattva. If we haven't made our lives sattvic, then that's what we have to do first. Yesterday I heard something so beautiful. One of our fellow brahmacharyas were saying that, his grandmother used to tell his father was like, I want to go out and change the world, I want to do this and do that. And the grandmother would say, go cut the grass in the yard first. Go do that first. Because if we cannot do the little things in our life in a very sattvic way, we're not going to be able to do these great things. So first, live that life in sattva, then we can hope to go beyond. And if someone says, this is all too hard, can you just give me a quick fix? And he says, have bhakti, have devotion towards Guru and Bhagavan. That's a quick fix. Because with devotion, everything happens smoothly. When we have an altar of devotion, we just offer everything to that altar and we are moved by that. So that is what we saw in verse 22. In verse 23, we saw that now the seeker in this Manah Shodhanam book has been constantly reflecting on the teachings. But they feel they are growing, but how do we know that we are growing on the spiritual path? What is the key? And so last time I gave you the 5 R's, right? This is how we know that we're actually moving closer to God, moving closer to evolution. How do we know? Number 1 is we become more regular. Are we more regular in our daily dharma, in our spiritual practice, in our commitments to ourselves and to other people? Are we regular? Because regularity is a sign of consistency. Consistency is a sign of respect for that commitment. So are we regular in our spiritual path and even in our daily dharma? Or are we haphazard? Second R is the recurrence of our problems are less. So let us say if we had some anger issues, some jealousy issues, some greed issues. If they are less now, then I am growing. Remember, growth is not going to happen right away. It happens in phases, in stages. So before, perhaps I would express my anger very violently in terms of my voice, but now I'm able to delay it. So there's some growth that's happening. So can I see that growth in me, where these things are not reoccurring as often or as deeply? Then, am I responding instead of reacting? So many times we just react. If somebody does something to us, we're like, we just react. But respond means we actually just pause for a moment, think about it, and then respond appropriately to that person at that time. So have my reactions changed into responses. Then we saw the rebound time is less. So it's not that spiritual seekers don't fall. They fall. But is it easier for me to get back up? Before, maybe when I fell, it is like totally I fell. But now I can feel myself fall and pick myself back up again. And I gave you the example of sometimes if somebody starts with a bad day, they say, oh, it's such a bad day. And then, oh, it's a bad morning. And then it's a bad afternoon. And then it's a bad night. Stop it right there. If something happened when we woke up, oh, it's a bad day, stop. Pick ourselves back up. Turn the direction. Don't let it go throughout the whole day. Then we say it's a bad week. Then we say it's a bad month. You know, and we've all done this. So how quick is my rebound time? Then the next is the remembrance of the teachings or also being reflective. Am I remembering what I've learned? Do I have a chance to reflect on my life? Because sometimes we move so quickly that we're not even thinking, how far have I come? How deep am I on the spiritual path? Do I want to go further? What are the things that I need to improve on? What are the things I need to change? So in this way, the seeker slowly sees that there are improvements. Because whenever we are in satsang or spiritual company, an improvement will happen. Because this is a place where the mind gets tuned up to the higher. This is a place where the mind will get tuned up to the higher. This is a place where 1 hour we have to be free from distractions. 1 hour we have to focus our mind. So in this 1 hour we are all practicing what we call sadhana chatushtaya. We have to sit straight, we have to be focused, we have to just be here and just absorb whatever is taught. So all of this happens in satsang. Thankfully, we're not the students of Swami Tapovan Maharaj. As I mentioned, we would have all failed, right? Very strict. So slowly, when we come, when we reflect, we also grow. Remember, this is why this teaching is given. This teaching is not given, this is not for marketing and followers. This is not why this teaching is given. This teaching is given to create seekers, to create people who want to evolve to the higher and transform. Because there's a great respect in this teaching. That's why it's given. Right? Now, we'll go to verse number 24. Okay? I'll chant and then you can repeat after me. Ishwaranugraha devam prasadena kurostatha kim na sadhyam maya loke Nishchinto hamato dhuna Ishwaranugraha devam prasadena kurostatha kim na sadhyam maya loke Nishchinto hamato dhuna. So what it says here, when we see our mind is gradually shedding its impurities, we become a little bit more confident that we can do this. How does that happen? Ishwara anugraha. It means by the anugraha, by the grace of the Lord. Prasadena guroho, by the grace of the teacher. Tatha, also. Kimna sadhyam, what is not possible, maya, by me, loke, in this world. Nishchintaha aham, I am free of anxiety. Ataha, therefore, aduna, so now I am free of anxiety. Thus, by the grace of the Lord and of my Guru, what is there in this world that cannot be accomplished by me? Hence, I am now free from all anxieties. So what is the way that we know our mind is pure? Nishchintaha. We are free from all anxieties. We are free from all worries. Free from all pressure, stress. This is how we know the mind is becoming pure. Now, what is this grace? Now see here, in life, 4 types of grace are necessary. The first kind of grace is called Atma Kripa. Kripa in Sanskrit means grace. Kripa, Prasada, Anugraha, these are all synonymous terms. So first is we need the grace of our own selves actually. What is the grace of our own selves? That inspiration to become better. We need that. We need that grace. Because some people just give up on themselves. Say, I can't improve. I am a no good. I am nothing in this life. I am a nobody. So Atma Kripa is when we actually say, I can be better in my life. And let me work on myself. Let me make a conscious effort to work on myself. And when I start working on myself, I start becoming better. And start with the basics. Nobody's saying, do all this 1 hour meditation. No. Start with the basics. Get up early. Start with the basics. Get up early. Go to work on time. Sit, respect food, and eat well. Pray a little bit. Exercise. I'm working on myself. Just basics. And when we start working on ourselves, we become open. And we become open to the second type of grace. The second type of grace is Ishvara Kripa, the grace of God. Grace of God is not selective. It's not only towards some people. Sometimes we think that when people are prospering, they're doing well, we think that God's grace is on them. Everyone in their family is doing well, God's grace is on them. But God's grace is not on me. That's actually not true. God's grace is not something that's selective, nor it's something that we have to wait for, nor is it very, very difficult to obtain. God's grace is that which is present everywhere. It's just a matter of opening ourselves up to it. That's all. Because God's grace is like the sun. It's impartial. It's spreading light everywhere. But there are some people who close their windows and close their doors and close their blinds and no light will get in. Can you blame the sun? But some people will open their windows, open their blinds, open everything, and lots of sunlight will penetrate through. They have opened themselves up. So to receive God's grace is actually just a matter of opening ourselves up. That's all. It's everywhere. I don't know if I shared with you the story about the Morse code. Did I share this story with you? There was at that time they had Morse code. There's a certain type of coding that they did, and there was an interview for it. So with Morse code, you have to kind of just hear the different ways that it clicks, and then you're able to see what the message is, or hear what the message is. So in one interview, they said everybody must come at 4 o'clock. So by 3:30, there were like 80 people outside that office, sitting for the interview. Everybody's sitting, waiting, So everyone's looking at each other, who will get the job and how are they going to interview 80 people, right? They were like, this is just, not done, and how can you do this? They should have emailed us, they should have scheduled it a different way. They were all complaining. Then finally, at 3:50, still the office door hasn't opened. 4 o'clock is the interview time, there's 80 people. 3:55, nothing. 4 o'clock, some noise was there, but everybody was so busy. 4:05, the door opens. Someone got the job. Everybody go home. Why? Because between 3:50 to 4, one Morse code was going on very subtly. That if you want this job, just come into the office quietly through the back door, and we will interview you, and you will get the job. Now, who heard it? One person. Who was this Morse code broadcast to? All 80 people. So, who is grace available to? Everybody. But there's this one person, a few people who can just tune into that grace and they get it. Mhm. So when we work on ourselves, we become purer, then we are attuned to the grace of God. Ishvara Kripa. And when we live like that, everything is only grace. We get something, it's grace. We lose something also, we say, oh, thank God, it's God's grace. Everything that happens is grace only, because we realize that everything is designed for us to evolve, to grow. And when God becomes pleased with us, then we are attuned to the third type of grace. The third grace is Guru Kripa. Guru Kripa means the grace of a teacher. That's called Guru Kripa. That we know that God's grace is with us when we are now connected to teachings. We are connected to a Guru Parampara. We're so blessed. We have Puja Gurudev who has taught us, who's teaching us. We are connected to that teacher. We are connected to a great vision of saints and sages. That's when we know that God's grace is evident. And it's important to have that teaching, that parampara, that lineage of teachers in our life, because many people will say, I can just learn on my own. I can just YouTube, I can Google, I can read books. I don't need to learn from anybody. We can think of this, but the most important teaching is actually the crushing of the ego. That's the most important teaching. It's the crushing of the ego. And only a teacher can do that. I remember when I was in Chennai and I had served there were many, many opportunities for crushing of the ego. Many, many times that it happened again and again and again and again. And every time after it, it felt like someone's really looking out for us. When we were writing the script for Gurudev's movie On a Quest, I was part of the team and we were studying Gurudev's life and trying to write something, and we struggled and we put something together and we showed it to Swamiji there. Swamiji looked at it. He's like, you call this writing? This is terrible. And he just threw it like that. And by then I knew him. By then I knew that this is the way he had to work with me. And when he did that, it just made our effort better. Just made our effort better, because then we sat, we said, okay, this is not gonna work. And we did it again and again and again. And after that, he said, okay, now this will work. So it is that kind of teacher, that kind of teaching, which gets rid of the ego. If we're not willing to get rid of the ego, Vedanta is not for us. Realization is not for us. Because the gateway to realization is the loss and the surrender and the dissolution of the ego. So to be connected to a Guru Parampara, a lineage of teachers, is incredibly important. In the Guru Parampara, in that context, Swami Tejamayanandaji told us one very beautiful thing. He said to one of the brahmacharyas, whenever you feel down, hold on to the feet of the Guru. Means hold on to Guru's feet. And she said, how? And he said, put one hand underneath, put one hand on top. The hand underneath means serve. Keep serving the vision. Keep serving the vision. Because in service, the ego gets crushed. Seva is an ego crusher. So keep putting your one hand under the foot of the Guru. Keep serving. That is seva. And put one hand on the foot of the Guru. That is our satsang. That's our sadhana. That's our constant attention and study to spiritual practices and spiritual knowledge. Put one hand on top. If we keep this hand in the bottom, we will not be able to leave the Guru. We're crushed in seva. And we all know, once we're crushed in seva, we're gonna keep getting crushed. We're gonna keep getting crushed in seva, right? So Guru will not leave us. And if we keep the hand on top, then Guru cannot walk away from us. Guru cannot walk away because we're holding Guru, right? Through the spiritual teachings, through the sadhana, through everything. So it is us holding on that keeps that grace alive. So the third is Guru Kripa. How do we know that the teachings have graced us? The teacher has graced us. Teachings have graced us. How do we know? The fourth grace is Shastra Kripa, the grace of the scriptures. When we are graced through a teacher, the scriptures open themselves up to us. You know, anybody can go to a Barnes and Noble's, Amazon Prime, order Bhagavad Gita. You do it. That's fine. But when you sit there and read it, you cannot guarantee that those words will open up to you. How will we guarantee that those words will come alive? We can't guarantee that. But when we are with that teaching, with that teacher, with that lineage, those words will come alive. And we will feel their vibrance. We will not only be able to read, we will feel the click in us. And that's when we have the grace of the scripture. Not when we read, but when the words come alive, when they actually dance in front of us. And we say, yes, that's what it is. One beautiful word I was reading, and one of these great Mahatmas had brought it to life. It's this word, aham. Aham means I. In the Sanskrit language, the first letter is a, and the last letter is ha. So aham. And so he said that every time we speak, we are actually contemplating on the inner self, aham. Because aham represents all the words, all the letters. All the words, all the letters are nothing but I. I am the substratum of them. So every time I speak, instead of thinking about what I'm speaking about, think about who is illuminating speech. Every time I am interacting with everyone, think about who is illuminating that I who's interacting with everyone. And in that way, that word aham comes to life. It's called Shastra Kripa. When we get the grace of the scriptures, then the realization of the truth is not far. Because those very words which tell us that you are infinite, your real nature is infinite, that tvam asi, that will shine brightly. And that leads to realization. So when we have these four graces in our life, we are truly blessed. We need not worry about anything. We need not worry about anybody. From Atma Kripa to Ishvara Kripa to Guru Kripa to Shastra Kripa. Way back, if you remember, I had told you that there are two departments. There's a worry department and there's a worship department. So if I'm worrying about things, what does it mean? I'm not worshiping God. And if I'm worshiping God, that means I shouldn't worry. And if I am worrying, I'm really not worshiping. True worship of God means true surrender and true freedom from this worry, from this stress, from anxiety. One beautiful thing that Gurudev always said is that if you fall, relax. You're just falling from the shoulder to the lap of the Almighty. It's okay. You can get back up. You're still in the Almighty. You're still in God. So this is what this verse means. This student then feels, what is not possible for me? What can't be possible for me if I'm backed up by all of these graces? Now we will see the final verse, verse number 25. Prapsyami shikram manaso hi shatyam. Prapsyami shikram manaso hi shatyam. Lina swarupe bhavita cha buddhi. Lina swarupe bhavita cha buddhi. Pashyan nijananda swarupa lokam. Pashyan nijananda swarupa lokam. Sukham charishyami sada vimuktaha. Sukham charishyami sada vimuktaha. Prapsyami shikram manaso hi shatyam. Lina swarupe bhavita cha buddhi. Pashyan nijananda swarupa lokam. Sukham charishyami sada vimuktaha. So he says something here. The aspiration that every seeker has, Prapsyami shikram. I shall gain very soon. What? Manaso hi shatyam. The purity of the mind I shall gain very soon. Lina swarupe bhavita cha buddhihi. And the intellect, buddhihi, bhavita, will be lina swarupe, will be dissolved in the self. Pashyan nijananda swarupa lokam. And seeing the world as my own blissful nature, sukham charishya. I shall happily roam about, sada vimuktaha, ever free. So, what is the result of all of this? Why are we studying this? Why are we looking at this? Because when we realize the self, that is the seat of ultimate bliss. So this seeker has said, I have attained shigram. I will attain very quickly the purity of mind. How? With these four graces. And when I attain this purity of mind, then the best thing happens, I can go beyond the mind. I can go beyond the mind, and I can realize my true nature as Atman. When I'm able to purify the mind. When I'm able to purify it, then I can go beyond it and dissolve my mind in the self. Some people, without the purity of the mind, they try to bypass everything and do everything. I am Atman. So what? I am Atman. That never works. It does not work. You can try it for a couple of minutes and it will stop working. So purity of the mind is essential. And when one's mind is pure, Nijananda Swarupa Lokam, one sees themselves in the entire world. So what is this enlightened being, and why would we want to be like this enlightened being? So, few pointers here. First one is given very nicely is Vishaya Nirapeksha. Vishaya Nirapeksha means an enlightened being doesn't actually need anything to be happy. What a wonderful thing. Because they have realized the self, so they are full, they are complete, they don't don't need anything to be happy. If this happens, okay. If this doesn't happen, okay. There's nothing required for them to be complete and full. Will they not need food and shelter and clothing? Of course they'll need all that. They'll need food, shelter, clothing. They'll need all of that. But they're not going to need anything to complete themselves. So they're Vishaya Nirapeksha. Second is Nirankusham Swatantriya. Their freedom is unrestricted. What do you mean unrestricted? Does it mean that they're going to just do whatever they want to do? They're the most dharmic people, by the way. They're the most dharmic people. But their freedom is unrestricted in the way that they are not trying to please anybody or please any group, they're not trying to attain any social stature. So first one is, with respect to objects, they don't need anything to feel complete. If it's there, fine. If it's not there, fine. It's not going to add or subtract to their happiness. Second one is, they're not trying to attain any position and not trying to please anybody. Sometimes what we try to do is to please people, and we do whatever people like because we want them to like us, right? This enlightened being is so wonderful that it doesn't matter if people like them or don't like them. They love everybody. They love everybody. They're the lover of everybody. One of our Swamijis, he went to South Africa. He was posted in South Africa. Now, he had never been to South Africa. He was from north of India, right? One Swami there, all of a sudden they said, you have to go to South Africa and establish Chinmay Mission there. And he's just thinking, I have never been to this land. I don't know what to do. And so they asked him in immigration, why are you here? He said, I came to love everybody. And this was his attitude. He said, I have just come to love everybody. And now in South Africa, there's a huge ashram there. And he's really, really connected so many people to this divine knowledge. So it's not trying to establish a position, getting everybody to like us, not like us. It is when an enlightened being is in that state, they're absolutely free from all of that. Free from even wanting to be known or recognized. There's some people who want to be outwardly known. There's some people who say, I don't want to be known, but they want to be known for not being known. It's very subtle. It's a subtle ego. It's all subtle egos, I tell you. But this Jivan Mukta doesn't matter. Whatever has to be done, let it be done. Let it be done. It doesn't matter. Then, Buddhir Phalam Anagraha. Oh, this is very nice. That means no insistence on anything. Oh, some of us try to insist that it has to be this way or not. If it's, I'm not doing it if it's not this way. It's my way or the highway, right? This kind of thing. No insistence. If it doesn't go this way, it's okay. It will still work out. Why will it still work out? Because for the enlightened being, they can make anything work. They can make anything work. You put them anywhere and they can make anything work. And that's the beauty of that. One of our brahmacharis asked the question to one of the Swamijis and said, it's so hard to get people to work, to do things. He said, you stop looking at others, you work. You get to work, you do things. And when you do things, people will become inspired and they'll come along. There's no insistence that people should be like this or people should not be like this. They just do whatever they have to do. And they can make anything work. Like Puja Gurudev, he came down and there were 4 people. From those 4 people, this enormous movement happened. It's just amazing what they do. And then, the last one is Nisankalpa. Means there's no such resolve for their own self. They don't take up anything for their own self. Whatever comes through them is just from Bhagavan. It's just divine will. They're not doing anything for themselves at all. This is the way they live. What a beautiful thing. Completely not wanting or needing any objects to complete themselves, not depending on other people to like them, not like them. It doesn't really matter to them. They just do what they have to do. There's no insistence on anything, and they don't take up anything for their own sake. This is that Nijananda Swarupa. Because they realize the self, they live happily with these qualities. And Sukham Charishyami, they roam about the world. Now listen to the word roam. They're not rushing about the world. Yeah? They're not walking with a particular direction or destination. When we say the word roam, it's kind of like you just go with the flow. They roam about. Guruji said if you're never finding a direction, then you're never lost. That's just the way life is. Huh? If you're never going anywhere specific, then you're never lost. You just move by the hand of divinity. And sadadi mukta, and they are ever free. So why purify our minds? Because it gets us to this state, this beautiful state of enlightenment. The purity of the mind is a gateway to the enlightenment of the self, the realization of the self. And that's why we must. So now, in short, let us say if we are to sum up this teaching, how would we sum up this teaching in short? Now, a few minutes I have, I'll sum it up in short, and then the next 2 sessions I'll give a extended summary. If we want to sum it up in short, one thing is that everyone must strive to purify the mind. 3 main reasons we gave before was to arrive in this knowledge, to even come to this knowledge, a pure mind is required. To absorb this knowledge, a pure mind is required. Now if the mind is going everywhere, here and there, it's not going to absorb the knowledge. Third is to abide in this knowledge. A pure mind is required. So purity of mind is required for everybody. And even if one is not pursuing the spiritual knowledge, to be happy in the world, one needs a pure mind. All these qualities that I spoke of, if we even have that in a little bit, if we even have an iota of that, how beautiful our lives would be. So the first essence of the teaching is we need a pure mind. Second essence of the teaching is we need to take time to introspect. We need to take time to introspect. In verse number 7 in this book, we saw lots of positive things that we should cultivate. If you remember, it was charity, it was service, it was austerity, it was going on pilgrimage, taking vows, doing japa. So in verse 7, it tells us all the beautiful things we need to cultivate. In verse 11, if you remember, it went through all the vices that we have and how to overcome those vices. So the second point of this text is we have to introspect, we have to work on ourselves. The third point of the text is if we want to trace the cause of sorrow, why we're experiencing so much sorrow in the world, the cause is ignorance. And in this regard, I had explained the 7 steps of samsara. So you will see in the text, 7 steps of samsara. We had gone over that. Very beautiful. Then the 4th point is that for every single remedy, every single illness rather, there is a remedy in our scriptures. So there were so many illnesses, whether it is false imagination, whether it is anger, whether it is fear, whether it is sleep. For every single illness, there was a remedy provided in the book. And the 5th point of the book is to fully purify the mind, we need that grace. As I explained to you, that grace is always there. It's always there. You just have to tune it. And once we keep these 5 points in mind, then the mind will purify. It will get better. Slowly, it might take time, but it will get better. And even if, let us say, the goal of our life is not enlightenment. Let's say I don't want to be enlightened, so I'm not going to pursue this fully. Okay, if you don't want to be enlightened, okay, but don't all of us want a better quality of life? Everyone here wants that, right? This will happen. This will happen. This is a knowledge that our great saints and sages have given us. So I offer my gratitude to our entire Guru Parampara for giving us this knowledge of why we should purify the mind, and how to purify the mind. We'll just pause for a moment in gratitude, and then we will take any questions that there are. Now, if anyone has any questions you have in mind, you can ask, or else we can continue to sit quietly. If there are no questions today, we'll sit quietly. Okay? So sit straight. Try not to move anywhere for the next 5 to 7 minutes or so.